2019 Hoboken City Council Candidates Forum. I'm Beth McGrath, Vice President for Government and Community Relations here at Stevens, and I'd like to offer a special welcome to all the VIPs in the audience, including friends, neighbors, elected officials, and particularly those who are on the hot seat here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Stevens is pleased to co-host this event with the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition and Hudson County View. I particularly want to recognize Melissa Abernathy, who led the planning and organization of this event, and moderators Bob Bowden and John Hines. I got that right. I also want to give a shout out to the Stevens Student Government Association, especially Samantha Mala, who's here somewhere in the aisles collecting cards, who with other Stevens SGA volunteers distributed hundreds of flyers for this event around town and who are volunteering here tonight. Sam and the SGA also led a voter registration drive on the Stevens campus this fall and are committed to increasing students' engagement in Hoboken civic life. Today, nearly 200 Stevens faculty and staff and more than 650 Stevens alumni have chosen to call Hoboken their home and are proud to be a part of the fabric of this community. I'd like to take just 2 minutes to share a couple of quick updates that I hope will be of interest to you. First, as our SGA volunteers illustrate, Stevens continues to attract the best and brightest stellar cadre of students. Talented students come to Stevens where they receive a world-class technology-infused education, then go on to have amazingly successful careers, including at companies like Jet.com, Wiley, and EY right here in Hoboken. Many form their own startup companies right out of college. Year over year, 96% of students accept employment in their field, many with multiple job offers, and with some of the nation's highest starting salaries. According to a recent pay scale report, our graduates placed 13th in the nation for the highest mid-career salaries. So why am I telling you this? It's because we're working hard to make these incredible outcomes and career success available to greater numbers of underserved and underrepresented minority students, including those right here in Hoboken. A program we started in 2017 known as ACES, that stands for Accessing Careers in Engineering and Science, which provides significant and in some cases full tuition scholarships, as well as academic support, mentoring, and other support services, resulted in a 60% increase in underrepresented minority students in our summer pre-college program, and a 46% increase in our freshman cohort in the very first year. And I'm pleased to say that Hoboken High School is a charter member and active participant in ACES. I also want to briefly mention that in 2020, Stevens will celebrate the 150th anniversary of its founding as America's first college of mechanical engineering. During the year-long celebration, we will be holding a number of events that may be of interest to the Hoboken community, including a national symposium on topics related to technology and society, a major student volunteer effort including tutoring in Hoboken schools, and a celebration of our heritage buildings on campus, including this one, the Edwin A. Stevens Hall, which has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and Walker Gymnasium, which was just recently listed on the National Historic Register. We're also preparing nominations for a number of other historic buildings on our campus that we look forward to sharing with the Hoboken community. While our 150th anniversary celebration is about the past, tonight is about the future. So let me conclude by saying that both as an institution and as a community of scholars, alumni, employees, and students, Stevens is proud to be a member of this great city, and tonight we look forward to hearing from our council members and council aspirants about their vision for the future of Hoboken. Good luck to you all. And as a final reminder, that following Thursday's forum, Stevens will host a reception for all the candidates from all 6 wards, as well as the community, in the Babbio Atrium, and I hope to see you all there. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Melissa Abernathy of the Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition and master organizer of this event.
Thanks, Beth. Just a moment while I pass off some of the early questions to our moderators. Thank you all for showing up, and thank those of you who are watching this live or later online on video. Welcome to what is probably the 8th or 9th Hoboken Quality of Life Coalition Candidates Forums. The Quality of Life Coalition, if you're not familiar with us, was founded in 2000 by Helen Minogue and a group of people who were active in various civic groups. One group might be more concerned with waterfront development, another more with parks, another more with open government. And they came together in the coalition to lend each other support and keep an eye on a whole host of issues that people wanted to see addressed, and lend each other support in that cause. We're very fortunate to live in a very small city where we can all gather at an event like this, and I credit Helen Minogue and the original members of the People for Open Government for starting the candidates forums. We have hosted this as a moderated forum to be able to both collect questions from the public, but present them to the candidates in a moderated, calm format and give them a chance to give you full answers to your questions. We will, I'll let Bob Bowden explain to you our format for how we're going to run this event. But let me just acknowledge the members of the Quality of Life Coalition. In addition to our founder emeritus, Helen Minogue, and our coordinator emeritus, Mary Kelly, neither of whom still live in town. The members are Tom Chartier, Eduardo Gonzalez, who is our timekeeper tonight, Inez Garcia-Kime, Esther Milstead, and Shelby Smith. Just wanted to talk a little bit about why we do these forums and ask that everybody here take them as seriously and frankly as joyously as we do, because this is where democracy happens. I sit in a group with the coalition and we each advocate for different candidates, different factions, different causes, but we come together and we have civil discussions and we work together for causes that we care about collectively. And I think that can happen here. I was reminded recently of a comment by Benjamin Franklin after emerging from 4 months of wrangling with people who bitterly hated each other and bitterly hated each other's positions to hammer out a Constitution for the United States. It's based on hammering out compromises in a room together. And when he was asked what kind of government the group had come up with after 4 months in a hot room in Philadelphia, he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." So it's on us as voters to keep the republic going, and it's on us to come to events like this, to vote, to get our friends to vote, not to throw away our shot. Ben Franklin also went on to say that the republic was the best thing they could come up with. When you assemble a number of people to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, you inevitably assemble with those people all of their prejudices, their passions, their errors of opinion, their local interests, and their selfish views. But you've got to have faith that they'll work it out. So I'm going to ask everybody here tonight and everybody watching at home to remember that these candidates are not going to agree with you on every subject. They're not going to agree with each other on most subjects. Their job and the job you're asking them to do is to represent you, to work out the best possible solution to do the minimum harm and the maximum good for the rest of us. And it's on us to let them know what we want. These people all put out public websites. They're all accessible by phone and email. And I want you to pick the candidate who's the most responsive. That's the only criteria I have. When we began hosting these candidates forums a decade ago, it was difficult to obtain a copy of the city's proposed budget. It was difficult to obtain a copy of minutes from city council meetings. It was difficult to get access to zoning and planning board meetings. That's all changed, and it's all changed through public involvement by average citizens. Average citizens, by coming out in a slight number more to vote against a referendum, made the beautiful waterfront that we have today possible, because they cared and because people sat on the sidewalk with petitions and got people to sign up and to come out and vote. So that's all we're asking. I'd like to briefly give you an introduction to our moderators. I'll turn it over to them, and they'll turn it over to the candidates for the evening's event. Our moderator, first moderator is Bob Bowden, who has been helping us with these forums since we started them. He's a longtime Hoboken resident. All right. He's a television producer, reporter, political commentator, documentary filmmaker, and a terrific moderator. Can't list them, and making it available.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And just one more time, just so this only happens because of Melissa. She does an enormous amount of work for this. Of course, all the candidates make time for this. Beth McGrath from Stevens is also here, and John Hines from Hudson County View. All of them, a round of applause, please. An enormous amount of work went into this. Please either turn off your cell phones or put them on silent so that you don't embarrass all of us with your whining cell phone. And then, let's see. So one note on timekeeping. Eduardo will be our timekeeper tonight, and he doesn't have the gong, which is sad for most of us. We like the gong. The gong is fun. There's no gong tonight. We can investigate as to the disappearance of the gong later. But for the timekeeping, it's going to be so everything is 60 seconds except an initial answer of a question. So what that means is opening statements are 60 seconds. When you get asked a question, your initial answer is 90, but then rebuttals are 60 seconds and closing statements will be 60 seconds. So when we approach the end of an answer, Eduardo, you're going to do what? You hold up the yellow like a soccer official, right? Is that sort of, have you been a soccer official before? Okay, he's not a qualified soccer official, ladies and gentlemen. And then, so that's a few, like 10 seconds left or something, or what? Okay, 10. And then when you're out of time, you get the red, and you really need to just finish that sentence once you get the red. In phrasing your questions, for those new to this forum, if you write the kind of question like, why is Councilman so-and-so such an idiot? That's my question I wanted asked. That's not the kind of question that we will ask. Please write questions that seem nonpartisan and more about public policy than something that feels like personal invective, because, you know, you get that. Okay, and then I've got my random number generator here. You guys see it up here. So the way this works is, and I'm pretty sure I'll screw this up at some point tonight, but if you guys watch, each time I hit 0 in this one and I hit 0 return, it gives me a new random number generator, random number list. And so this is going to be a practice, right? So it's going to be like this. I'm going to go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that will be a practice. And then what I'll do is highlight all these, come over and just hit this sort now. And that will be the order of how we do the opening statements and each question. So I'm going to do it again for real in a second. And one last thing. I know the real reason most of you guys are here is to find out about my Doggedly Hoboken Instagram. Yes, it's pictures of all dogs all the time. And if you're wondering why I go around town taking pictures of dogs, it's for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So I do recommend I do recommend the Doggedly Hoboken Instagram page for all of you who love dogs, and this should be all of you here. All right, so let's go now to the second most important thing of the evening, which is the forum. So we come back here, so we're about to do opening statements, and I'm about to do another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then that will be the order of opening statements. So here we go. I got to first click on this cell. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Come back, highlight these rows. Do a brand new sort. Sort now. And we see that Mrs. Milano will be the first opening statement. Also, one other thing, by convention, we allow applause only at opening statements and closing statements in the evening. So feel free to applaud as you see fit in opening statements. We now offer the time to Ms. Milano. Go right there.
Is it working? Testing? Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Bob. I absolutely willed that to happen. I really wanted to begin this. I want to thank Bob and Melissa and all of you for attending tonight. The weather's, not quite so great, but this is really important, so thank you so much for being here. I thought about writing an opening statement and thought it must be, it'd be ideal to jot down my ideas. And then I reconsidered, and now I'm regretting that. I really do want to be genuinely from the heart, and I want to let you know I'm here today to represent my first ward that I've lived in most of my life. I understand the issues, I understand the concerns that we have in this first ward, and the residents really have called me to task and need my voice. And I'm here to give it to them. And my position, you can hear more about it throughout the rest of the evening. Thank you.
May I go? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ron Bautista. I'm running for Third Ward City Council. And I'm running because I want to fight for a city that works for all ages and abilities. I've been living in Hoboken for the past 20 years. I've been an advisor on transit solutions. I've been an advisor for the New York State Department of State on how to connect the community with government. But most of all, I'm a parent. I'm a neighbor. And I want to tell you that, when we come here tonight, that we're all neighbors and that we're all in the same boat, that your problems are my problems too, that we have to think about this as together. And when you're stuck in traffic, and that's my problem too. That's your problem, and that's my problem. When there are 375 plus injuries in the past 5 years, there's your problem and my problem. And basically, it's that this November 5th, we need to change gears. We have no time to waste. We have to work together, and we have to, and I ask you for your vote on November 5th. Thank you so much.
Good evening, I'm Tim Krul. I'm running for City Council in the 5th Ward. Thank you to everyone who helped put this event together. It's fantastic. Thank you all for being here. My wife Katie and I moved here 6 years ago after the birth of our daughter. Our son was born here. We brought him home to Hoboken, and 4 years ago we really settled down, purchased a home, and we're here in Hoboken. A lot of people have asked me why I want to run. Why do I want to go through this craziness to serve on City Council? My mom reminded me of a quote. It says, I don't want to live in the kind of world where we don't look out for each other. Not just the people that are close to us, but anyone who needs a helping hand. I can't change the way anybody else thinks or what they choose to do, but I can do my bit. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to do my bit for the 5th Ward, to help the people that need help, and to be here and listen to everyone in the community. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Michael Russo. I want to thank all the organizers for this evening, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to serve as the 3rd Ward Councilman, and I'm excited to be running for re-election. As your councilman, I've advocated for major quality of life upgrades that make the 3rd Ward, our home, the best place to live in the city. One of the things I'm most proud of is the addition of a major piece of open space in Hoboken at 7th and Jackson. As a member of that committee, I helped negotiate crucial parts of the redevelopment deal that provided unprecedented givebacks from the developer of 2 acres of open space, a new public plaza, a gym, and so much more. This was a major win for our community, and I'm truly thankful to have played such an important role in moving it forward. In addition, I advocated for much-needed renovations at Madison Street Park, Hoboken's premier splash park. This beautiful park has new equipment and modernized space for all of our children to enjoy.
Time.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Councilman Mike Tafusco. 15 years ago, I moved to Hoboken's first ward right out of college, and shortly after, I became a homeowner. I invested in this community. 9 years ago, I was appointed as a commissioner on the zoning board, one of the youngest, and from that experience, I learned the ins and outs of not only being a volunteer, but what it means to be community-oriented. 4 years ago, I decided to run for city council because I knew the first ward in downtown Hoboken deserved better, that we could be doing a more responsive job at visionary approach to government. I was happy to win that election, and I've been hard at work ever since. Working with two administrations, we've pushed for small businesses, ensured safer streets, invested in infrastructure, and pushed for affordability, the middle class in Hoboken. And I've also been an independent, somebody that stood up to both of those administrations when they weren't serving the community in the best interest. I'm looking forward to debating not only my platform, but also my accomplishments, and I look forward to a very productive night. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Phil Cohen. Thanks to QLC and Stevens for hosting this evening's debate. Hoboken is a great place to raise a family, open a business, see a show, enjoy a meal, or take in our spectacular waterfront parks. But Hoboken faces great challenges. Hoboken faces an existential threat from climate change, and yes, it's real, rising tides and stronger storms. The last 2 years I've worked on the Citizens Advisory Board for Rebuild by Design, focused on our flood protections. We're all in this mile square together. If we don't complete Rebuild by Design by 2022, the federal government can claw back our $230 million grant, leaving us as unprotected as that awful day in October 2012, just 7 years ago, when the Hudson River devastated Hoboken, drowning 80% of our shattered city. We will discuss a lot of important issues tonight, but first, among all, is making our city resilient and building a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, John. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Stevens Institute, for hosting this great debate tonight. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicola Maggie, and I'm running for Hoboken City Council, 5th Ward. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from Italy. I grew up in Wayne, New Jersey for 23 years, where I attended William Patterson University in Montclair State, where I received my MBA. I'm currently an assistant vice president at a global services financial firm, where I work in regulatory governance. And throughout the years living in Hoboken, I quickly understood what the problems and issues were. And you don't have to live in a mile-square city for over 30 years to understand that. Some of those issues were impacting my quality of life, which was public transit. So I'm the founder of the Twitter handle Hoboken Commuter, which advocates for Hoboken commuters, whether you take the bus, the path, the ferry, or if you drive. I have solutions in place to make it better, and have solutions in place for other challenges that the city faces. Thank you.
That's it. Oh, sorry. One thing, try to write legibly, everybody, you know? Like we're trying to read your things up here. And then, okay, and so I guess I'll do this again. So here we go, and then it'll be up to John. So here we're gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the new order. Highlight, sort now. Looks like Mr. Russo will be first for the next question. Please welcome John Highness.
All right, so Bob did most of the heavy lifting already, so I won't belabor the point too much. I know you want to get to the questions, but very quickly, just want to say, you guys have seen me around, I've seen most of you around. You know me as the host that's often a saint, rarely a sinner, but always has the aura of a certified winner, John R. Highness. Great to be here. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Beth. And of course, thanks to the candidates. It's always a good time. I think we have a lot of fun. So with that said, we'll get to the questions. With no surprise to anyone that's been following along in recent weeks, we're going to be talking about the Hoboken rail yard redevelopment plan. So, at the recent public meeting at the Multi-Service Center, a large number of residents expressed concern about this plan, particularly with regard to traffic and parking impacts. So, are you in favor of the project, and would you change your position if a majority of residents came out and said they were opposed to it prior to a council vote? So we're going to start with Councilman Russo.
Thank you, John. I am currently in favor of the project. I've been working on this project since its inception in the city of Hoboken, and I think we need to move the project forward. There's a lot of debate out there about specifically how big the project is, what the changes have been made, and how that's going to ultimately be built in the city of Hoboken. I'd like to reach out to my constituency and get some real feedback, and surprisingly enough, it would probably surprise most people that there's about 50% of residents in the city of Hoboken that are actually in favor of this project. And there's another 18% that would like to see the project finished, but have some minor changes that they would like to see happen. So currently I am in favor. I don't think I would change my position, but I love the question and how it's worded. I'm very hopeful to hear how some other candidates feel about the project, knowing that the majority of the citizens in Hoboken are actually in favor of that project. Thank you.
Very good, Councilman. And now we're actually going to go to the other Councilman Mike DeFusco. Give us your thoughts, please.
Thank you, John. As the chairman of the Southern Development Committee, as well as the councilman representing the district, I've spent an extensive amount of time meeting with condo associations as well as residents to discuss the impacts of this project. I don't think the question is where I stand on it, because at a community meeting just last week, I supported tabling the project until we were able to circulate a traffic study, which many residents were concerned about. However, this is a good project to discuss in this debate, because working with the administration, we were able to successfully size down what in my opinion was too large of a project. The infrastructure opportunities that are associated with this are substantial, and one that our $117 million budget cannot afford on its own. From warding against flooding, to improvements in our streets, to traffic circulation, to helping small businesses. This is a revolutionary plan that is going to redefine our gateway, as well as invest in our transportation hub. And one of the areas that I've been talking about ever since I ran for council 4 years ago is bringing a European market to the train terminal, a place where artists, makers, and creators can succeed, similar to Chelsea Market or Reading Terminal Market in the city. This is truly a community conversation. That's why I, as well as the council majority, tabled the conversation until all relevant plans and studies were circulated, and I look forward to continuing the conversation, because without the community, without a robust dialogue, there will be no plan, but I'm confident we can move this forward. Thank you so much, John.
All right, thanks, Councilman. And next, we're going to hear from candidate Pagan Milano.
I remember as a child spending a lot of time at the waterfront at Lackawanna. The fountains were functional. It was a really great place. Jerry Fallow screened the first movies under the stars there. So a lot of childhood memories. It's unfortunate it's gone in disrepair. I feel that it's about time that we do something about it. I know it's been talked about for the last 15, 20 years, and it's great to see that there's real talk. However, we have to be smart. We have to look at this from a smart development perspective. We have to stay within the scale and the charm of what we are today, which is, this quaint, beautiful Hoboken that we need to provide the residents with. They're the most important. We have to make sure that we do not impact their quality of life. This is the largest Northeast train hub, a lot of commuters, and we just need to be smart about how we develop this. Thank you.
All right, great. And next, we're going to hear from candidate Krul.
I said this at the last debate that we had for the 5th Ward. You'll probably hear me say it again tonight. Development is the single issue that will frame quality of life in Hoboken for the next 50, 100 years. Development is what's going to impact parking in the town. It's going to impact traffic, pedestrian safety, all other issues that we're going to talk about tonight. But development will influence our quality of life here in Hoboken, and we really need to make sure we get it right. I echo a lot of the sentiments that we've heard up here tonight. Are we taking into account traffic studies? Are we taking into account, what's going on Observer Highway? Are a lot of those buildings blighted? Could they use improvement? Absolutely. Would I like to see a European market down in that transportation hub? And yes, but everything has to be done carefully. Everything has to be done in such a way. I mean, we get one chance to get this right. If it becomes something that we don't want it to be, we're not going to be able to take it back. Thank you.
Great. And next, we have Mr. Cohen.
So I think it's absolutely critical that New Jersey Transit makes the necessary upgrades that it needs to make to its terminal. That terminal is in need of some serious TLC. It's historically beautiful in the waiting area, but it could be so much more, and it could serve our communities so much better. So I'm really excited that there's a prospect here that we can get the infrastructure improvements to that New Jersey Transit hub that we really need. But as I said in my opening, the critical issue facing our community is infrastructure. And with respect to the Rebuild by Design plan, the reason why this plan has shrunk significantly, which I think is a very good thing, is because you need to build the southern wall that will protect the Hudson River from entering Long Slip behind the port, the New Jersey Transit Terminal, which soaked and came through and flooded the back end of Hoboken. All these discussions that the City Council is having, tabling these decisions, I think we cannot lose sight of the fact that we must complete Rebuild by Design by 2022. If we don't do it, the federal government can take the $230 million back. People have been playing politics in City Council on a lot of issues. It's campaign season. Things get pulled at the last minute for maybe the right reason, maybe the wrong reason. That being said, I do think it's a good idea that we have traffic studies. I do think it's a good idea that we understand the scale of the project, whether it makes sense. I'm concerned about a 300-foot tower. It seems to be out of scale for the community, and not sure that I would support that at all. Thank you.
All right. And finally, we're going to hear from candidate Batista. Sorry, my apologies. That's candidate Batista.
Yeah, so I believe that there has to be more transparency on the project. I think there was a good thing that we had a conversation just a bit ago with the public so that people can know what the amendment was about. I am concerned about the reduction of open space, which I would like to look more into it, and for people to know why that open space has been reduced. There's also the notion that there's going to be only 10% be allocated to affordable units, apartments. There's other cities, and we have to change some measures at the city level, that there are other cities that do 30% affordable. I think we should look into that as well. And in terms of traffic, yes, we should do a traffic study. And the thing is, it depends on how we are focusing that development. If that development is transit-oriented, that means that more people can move around to that commercial space, to that office space through mass transit, and that way won't impact the traffic that comes into Hoboken. And for that, we have to plan and prioritize on mass transit as well and other alternative means of transportation. Thank you.
All right, great. And now, sorry for jumping the gun, candidate Batista.
Thank you. Well, let me be very clear here tonight. I will not be in favor of any redevelopment plan that does not have enough community input. I spoke to a member from the Redevelopment Task Force, and this individual, which I will not name, had lots of concerns. And through our discussion, we discussed a couple things. We talked about the different sites. Site 1 adds more than 50% of the height to the property. Site 2 goes from completely commercial to residential, and there's issues there with overdevelopment in this town. And then the records building is at risk. When there isn't enough community input, you can't just put through to the council a plan to try to get it passed. That's not my philosophy. That's not how this council or the city should operate at all. And when we talk about these redevelopment plans, we should also be talking about the North End redevelopment plan, which impacts my ward in the 5th. The North End redevelopment plan only had 2 community meetings. I attended the meeting, and the second meeting, there was hardly 30 minutes for the community to put their own input into the plan that was proposed by the city. And that's concerning, because this is a redevelopment plan that will impact thousands of people for many years, and it comes at a time where we need to have more community input into these discussions. Thank you.
Very good. And before I hand it back to Bob, just wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend and colleague, Mark Bucinich, for helping us reach our friends in Facebook land this evening. So Bob?
No, it's also rebuttals.
And sorry, I didn't see any hands, but were there any rebuttals? Yes.
Thank you, John. It's concerning to hear my opponent kind of dodge the issue. The plan is pretty tangible. We didn't hear any cogent response as to whether she agreed or disagreed with it, which is surprising considering Local 825, the international operating engineers, came out and endorsed her. That was also the largest faction at the community meeting last Tuesday, applauding the plan left and right. So I would love to hear my opponent's stance truly and straightforward on where she stands on this project, because the 825 operating engineers are the same super PAC that entered the 2017 mayoral race at the last minute, funneling $125,000 in dark interest money behind her boss, Robbie Bala. Thank you.
I'm going to guess that there's a rebuttal out there somewhere.
Certainly. I thought I was semi-clear on my stance. I mean, I grew up in this city, and I have very wonderful memories of Lackawanna. Of course, I would like to see this project move forward, and I'm supportive of it. And I am supportive of it, as I said, with a smart approach, keeping Hoboken and the charm and character in play, making sure that the quality of life for the people is what's most important, not just development. I do find it quite interesting that my opponent, keeps talking about this large PAC money, and I do have the copies of his ELEC report at the end if you'd like a copy, and you can see where the PAC money is going to. I'll be happy to provide one.
All right, now we're having a good time. So that's... All right. No, hold your applause. Thank you. Hold your applause. All right, hold your applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. We're going to let Bob back up.
Okay. So, moving on here. So the next order will be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now we'll try to sort this bad boy. So Mr. Batista will be first to answer this. Just a show of hands, I'm curious, who has ridden one of the Lime scooters in town? Raise your hand. Okay, reasonable percentage of hipsters here in the audience, we appreciate it. And so, a couple of questions about a combination of things I decided to combine: bicycles with the scooters with the sidewalks. So one question, scooters, how can they be better managed? Another question, what's your position on the illegal use of Lime scooters, breaking motor vehicle laws every day? Another question, are protected bike lanes worth spending tax money on in this town? And would you support bike lanes in other places, including Clinton, Grand, Jefferson, and 11th Streets? And then another question about sidewalk safety. Is it possible for a candidate to do anything for our city's uneven and various states of disgrace, I think, of the city's sidewalks? So sidewalks, scooters, and bicycles. We begin with Mr. Batista.
Thank you. Well, the fact is, the studies show that the way that we get riders off the sidewalks is to have protected bike lanes. Now, that has been proven over and over again, study after study, and is the reason why my opponent started talking about protected bike lanes just a few months ago, because of the pressure of having pedestrian safety and better measures that would allow for the program to continue, which I'm not sure if he supports or if he doesn't. I get mixed signals. And so basically it's that we have to build that infrastructure in order for us to have better safety. And talking about hipsters, I do see hipsters of all ages in this crowd, so that's a good thing. I've seen people from all ages, all different parts of town that are using this as a mode of transportation. Yes, as a mode of having fun as well. But I remember also when my uncle, Hoboken born and raised, he would say, "Hey, let's go out for a drive. Let's drive down the waterfront all the way to Edgewater." So it's the same way that we've been using our transit systems elsewhere. I am worried about the riding on the sidewalk. I really don't appreciate it. I'm very upset when that happens and when they don't follow the rules. But that's human behavior. We have to legislate not based on thinking that people are perfect. We have to legislate based on the imperfection of people and how do we make sure that they follow the rules. Thank you.
Mr. Batista's opponent, Mr. Russo.
Thank you. So let's talk about a couple things in the city. It's funny how a lot of people love to cite national surveys, but the reality is we need to survey our own residents in the city of Hoboken. So there's 60% of our residents, and this comes from over 3,000 participants in a survey. There's over 60% of our residents that are not 100% in favor of the Lime scooters. Let that sink in for a second. Again, 54% of our residents in the city of Hoboken are not in favor of protected bike lanes, 100% in favor of protected bike lanes. Those things need to be implemented in a sensible way. My voting record is very clear. I voted for the first protected bike lane in the city of Hoboken. So it's surprising to hear that no one knows my stance on this. But it does have to be implemented smartly. We have to make sure that our residents are safe. We have to make sure that our mothers could walk our streets without being hit. We have to make sure that our emergency vehicles could get through the city without problem. So I'm hoping that no one's trying to twist my position, but the reality is, and I'll say it again, I voted in favor of the first protected bike lane in the city of Hoboken. Thank you.
You guys see the order. You can just go from now on without being discussed.
Thank you.
My neck there, Bob.
Yeah. That's a lot to get into one question, Bob, but thank you. So let's start off with scooters, because the more doors I knock on, that's a big thing that everyone wants to talk about. The current way that the program has been rolled out, I am not in favor of scooters. I have 2 young kids, 6 and 4.5. They want to be able to color on the sidewalk in front of our house with sidewalk chalk, and I can't let them do it without standing there over top of them, because I'm concerned someone's going to come flying down the street on a scooter. All of you here tonight that raised your hands and said you rode scooters, you look like responsible people, responsible riders. I don't think you're riding on the sidewalk, but there are things that we can do to help encourage people to be more responsible. It comes down to 3 E's: engineering, enforcement, education. We need to educate riders on what's going on. When I log on to the Lime Scooter app and you go to start to ride, it says, hey, we want you to read the rules. But the scooter's going do-do, which makes me feel like I'm being charged, whether I am or not. So am I really going to read the rules, or am I going to thumb to the bottom, hit OK, and take off? Thumb to the bottom, hit OK, and people take off. So we need to do a better job educating people. We need engineering. We need places for people to ride safely. We need places for people to park the scooters so that they're not being left blocking sideways, blocking intersections, and are just left all over the place. Finally, enforcement. We need, if Lime can tell me that that scooter is 42 feet down the aisle, 3rd chair to the left, it can tell me when someone's riding the wrong way up Garden Street. It can tell me when the scooter is doing the wrong thing. We need to financially incentivize Lime to help us with enforcement.
Okay.
Certainly a lot to cover in 90 seconds. Listen, working with Councilman Russo, I can attest that we believe that the street should be shared by everybody, bikes, pedestrians, as well as automobiles. It's no easy task. It's easy to sit up here as a candidate and say, paint a picture of what would be rosy and nice, but the truth of the matter is it's difficult. But working with the administration, we pushed for a pilot on the west side of Hoboken for a protected bike lane, and currently we're working with the administration to explore new opportunities. Now, Lime, I was the first elected representative to come out and say we should have this conversation. What I wasn't expecting was for the administration to put up a contract without going out for RFP to the city council and expect us to vote on it without having any enforcement plans or public education. The council unanimously supported it, but also expressed concern. The second contract came up, Ojo, and I was very animated on the city council. I said any council person that supports this contract is going to have blood on their hands. A bit over dramatic, I know, but that's what I saw about to happen. We have an administration that needs a check and a balance, and that's what this council is providing, and that's what I am providing as the first ward representative. Ensuring that we raise the violations for scooters, I've done that. Ensuring that we authored a resolution forcing the mayor to go back and renegotiate these contracts, I've done that. And making sure that we've geofenced the waterfront, prohibiting scooters from the waterfront, I've done that. That's my stance. Now it's time for the administration to enforce, and that's why we need an independent on the city council.
No applause. Go ahead. It's okay, Patricia.
I am a cyclist. I cycle every day. I cycle to Trader Joe's. I go to the other markets. I go to the mall. I go to Jersey City, and I go to work every day on my bicycle. I know how important it is to have pedestrian safety. I appreciate the Lime scooters because they do afford mobility to people who don't necessarily want to ride a bicycle. And I appreciate that they do keep vehicles off the street. I am in favor of better maintenance, and I'm in favor of the administration cracking down on what's going on with the scooters. Let's talk about that. Micromobility officers have been hired. They have been out in full speed giving tickets and making sure that everyone obeys the rules. I also think we have to look at other options. I've proposed that we, like the Zip car, have a membership where you would have to commit to it. And I believe if you commit to it and have to pay a fee every month, you're more apt to take it seriously and follow the rules. You know, things like that I think can really make it work out. Ultimately, if the rules can't be followed, this is not going to work out, and I don't have a problem with that.
So I'm in favor of Vision Zero, the idea that we need to have safe streets and reduce pedestrian deaths to zero. I think that is a great goal. And I think that protected bike lanes are essential to support the safe commuting of bikers and scooters in our city. And adding them to our streets will remove the bikes and scooters from our sidewalks, which is unsafe for the pedestrians and for the riders. The protected bike lanes will create safe spaces for the bikes and the scooters in the roads where they belong, away from the sidewalks where they threaten seniors, where they threaten Tim's kids and everybody else. I think the City Council blew it in 2016 when they had an opportunity to do a protected bike lane on Washington Street. It was recommended by Mayor Zimmer's administration. It could have been done next to the curb instead of behind diagonally parked cars, where you have a double parked car forcing scooters and riders into the middle of Washington Street. It's just inherently unsafe. It's a poor design. It was a poor plan. And why is it surprising that you have bikers and scooters on sidewalks when they don't feel safe in the road? If you build it, they will come. And it looks like Jersey City is well on its way towards a master bike plan. I think Hoboken should be right there on the cutting edge as well. With respect to Lime scooters, I do think that if you look at the numbers, they're extremely popular. They're being really used well. The Ojo scooter, I supported taking them out. They were not as committed to education and enforcement as Lime has been. I think that if we increase enforcement with the new contract that the mayor negotiated, we should have better enforcement from the HPU, and I think the program can be saved. Thank you.
Thank you. So I spoke to thousands of residents, and I would say this much: 1 in every 2 or 3 doors that I speak to, this is a hot topic. And understandably so. Everyone has either witnessed, experienced, or heard of an accident. And the real reason to that is because we had a botched rollout from the administration who put thousands of lives at risk. But thank God no one got hurt in terms of a fatality, that is. It's great that we renegotiated the contract with Lime Scooter. I think it's a step in towards the right direction where we're getting 35 cents for every ride, but we should be asking the questions: how much money have we received thus far? And what exactly, from an enforcement perspective, are we doing with that money? Some of the things I want to do is see signs across town to let people know which direction they should be going. For instance, here's a great example. If you take a scooter and you go down Monroe Street, if you don't make that left turn to head towards the waterfront, you're going to end up in Observer Highway. And no scooterist is going to want to risk their lives to go through Observer Highway. So what are they going to do? They're going to turn back, and they're going to go the opposite side of the direction, but understandably so. So that's why I think the city needs to put signs to direct scooterists, bicyclists, the direction that they should be going. The next thing we should do is repave some of our roads. The bike lanes are absolutely terrible. and they could use more paint to be more clear and visible, because quite honestly, a lot of people find it intimidating to hop on a bike, to hop on a scooter, to ride here throughout town.
Time.
So that's what I would like to do. Thank you.
Okay, I was told this is a lot of questions to pack into one question, so we have rebuttals. You guys can spend more time. I first saw Mr. Batista on the end.
Yeah, so there is a big difference between studies and surveys, Councilman Russo. And there's also a big difference between leading and following. So we have to lead with the science behind how do we solve these things. And listen, I lost count of how many cars have crashed into the sidewalks in the past year in Hoboken. And they've been like big crashes too. Now, when the Ojo scooter got into that crash with that person, with that mom that had a stroller, I was the first one on Twitter that said, you know, this one should not be renewed, because that one is a lot bigger. It goes a lot faster, and it doesn't even have the number of how fast you're going in that scooter. So that was a good call. But I do think that we have to invest more in infrastructure, and we haven't done so, with protected bike lanes in Hoboken. We're just starting to talk about protected bike lanes in Hoboken on the west side of Hoboken. I don't think that's fast enough, and we have that sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm. Next, Mr. Russo.
Thank you, Bob. Let's talk about how protected bike lanes came about in the conversation on the west side of Hoboken. That came about in my committee as the Parking and Transportation Chairman. We spoke about that at length. As a matter of fact, I advocated for Jefferson Street to be included in our protected bike lane streets. However, that would have only been about 5 blocks. It didn't make sense. Again, here's a clear position of taking an extreme position when it comes to something. We need to look at each individual street. The question's been asked about Grand, Clinton, and 11th Street. Well, the answer isn't yes to all or no to all. The answer is maybe one, maybe two, maybe none. But if we look at it in totality and we're unable to differentiate that, those extreme positions will never work in the city of Hoboken, and everybody has to understand that.
Any other debates? Any other responses? Mr. Krul, I saw next. Sorry.
I find it a little surprising that Mr. Maganuco doesn't see signs around Hoboken directing the scooters. There are one-way signs and traffic signs all over town. The scooters want to ride in this town, they need to obey the traffic laws, they need to obey the traffic signs. If you get to the end of Monroe and you run into Observer Highway and you don't want to go on that street with your scooter, you don't need to go the wrong way down a one-way. You get off the scooter and you walk it on the sidewalk like a normal person. This is not difficult. You need to obey the traffic laws, you need to obey the enforcement, and you need to do the right thing. With regards to bike lanes, I got a lot of shtick last time after our debate on Twitter for not being in support of bike lanes. I am in support of bike lanes. What I'm not in support of is tearing up a $20 million infrastructure project on Washington Street to put in bike lanes that were not provided for before. And I've done a lot of research on this. Just because you want to put a bike lane on Washington Street doesn't mean it will be safer. You're going to have cars now turning left and right down Washington. They have to pay attention to pedestrians. They have to pay attention to bicyclists. And those long stretches that have constant intersections are dangerous for bike lanes.
Mr. Okay, yes. Mr. Maganuco.
That very position, Mr. Krul, you should tell that to the thousands of residents who put their lives in danger when they ride their bike throughout town. You should tell that stance to Bike Hoboken, the civic group that rides their bike and is engaged with bike riders every day. Putting signs and putting safety measures should never be opposed. Absolutely not. And I think that speaks to a lot about your experience, because I'm not sure if you even take the bike outside in Hoboken, and you understand that. As someone who does myself, I know the risks firsthand of what it's like hopping on a bike or either hopping on a scooter and knowing the real dangers when you're putting your life at risk and I'm not sure where to turn or where to go or where to stop. Tell that to Hoboken, Tim.
Any other rebuttals? Mr. DeFusco.
Thank you, Bob. I think there's a pattern here. It's about communication. It's about community involvement. When, as Mr. Russo correctly stated, the administration pushed for a Jefferson Street bike lane, it was literally a hodgepodge plan where there were certain blocks that would have one and certain blocks that wouldn't. The councilman and I worked together to make sure that the safety initiatives as part of that were very much solid. Same thing is happening right now on Clinton Street. The administration is trying to rush a bike lane on Clinton Street without adequately talking to the businesses. And the same exact thing happened on Washington Street, where nobody from the Zimmer administration had talked to the businesses about how they were going to sustain their economic viability. So guys, it's okay to talk about pie-in-the-sky ideas or reasonable ideas, but when you have to engage the community and you get disparate viewpoints, that's what being a council person is. And more so, when you stand truth to power by speaking to an administration, we need an independent on the city council that's always going to work with everybody, but be unafraid to say when something's right and when something's wrong. Thank you, Bob.
Any other rebuttal?
Bob,
Mr. Cohen.
if you don't mind, Bob, I'd like to.
Well, no, I saw him next. You'll be after that. I'd seen him. Go ahead, Mr. Cohen.
So I just want to say that one of the things I think is important to have a successful protected bike lane is to have loading zones. I know that residents are concerned in my neighborhood that what happens when the mail truck pulls up or an Amazon delivery happens and people are leaning on their horns and they're not going to be able to get by. I think that if you're going to be doing this, you need to be doing it thoughtfully. And I agree with the other speakers. If you're going to, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. So you have to be sensitive to the neighborhood. You have to get in buy-in. You have to talk to the stakeholders, and you have to work with public safety officials to make sure that the plan is well thought out and makes sense. So if there are loading zones so people can drop off their groceries, can drop off their kids, it will not obstruct the flow of traffic, and you'll have a successful bike lane and a successful traffic pattern, and you'll have more people using the bike lanes safely. And you'll get the bikers and the scooters off the sidewalks so that our seniors feel safe, our kids feel safe, and it works for us. If we do this thoughtfully, it can be successfully. If we rush it through without consideration, we're going to have problems.
Mrs. Milano.
Thank you, Bob. So, I just want to say that, climate change is real, and we have to find other means of ways to take care of Mother Earth. And lessening our carbon footprint is one of them. That includes bicycles and, these Lime scooters. Bicycles are here. They're here to stay. They were always really here. But what I'd like to just mention is Europe has been doing it for a lot longer. Places like Brussels, we've got Copenhagen. They have Amsterdam with systems of mobility that doesn't require a vehicle. I think instead of the city council bickering about these issues, they really should start working together and looking towards viable solutions. There are plenty of other designs out there where we can have a protected bike lane without having to take away parking spaces and without having to affect local businesses. And as your council person, I plan on doing that.
Okay, I believe that's all for that. All right, so now let me get the next order. Are we going to take a break, did we say? You guys want to take a bathroom break?
Let's keep going.
See, they don't want to, Melissa.
Let's keep going.
You know. Okay. Oh, the candidate's going to having a biological emergency? No? All right, so we'll keep going. All right, so I'll do the next one, which is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the next order. We highlight the rows, come back to sort, hit sort now, and Mr. DeFusco will be first, and this is John.
No, this time we're just going to get to it, Councilman. I got a lot of them, but, we're short on time. So we're just going to talk about municipal spending. A lot of questions. As you can see, a lot of people want to know about how we hold the line on taxes, how the cost of living can be kept stable, if not decreased. So I guess I'll try to put it all into just one sentence or two here. When it comes to municipal spending and keeping the cost of living affordable for all of Hoboken, what distinguishes you from all the other candidates?
Yeah. Great question. Hoboken has increasingly gotten more expensive, not just for the middle class and not just for those that are struggling to keep a job and find a job, but even for folks like me that hold a full-time job in Manhattan in the private sector. At the end of the day, when I first came onto the city council, the budget was entirely reliant on the residential component, mainly, I should say, reliant on the residential component. So working with the administration, the Ball administration, we expanded the tax base. We diversified the tax base by creating a new business expansion district, which is going to help mom and pops, makers and creators succeed once again in Hoboken. Responsible development and making sure that we find structures and plans that invite small businesses as well as medium-scale businesses back into Hoboken is going to be paramount in terms of continuing the diversification of our tax base. Now, the scary thing about our budget is that our legal expenses have grown. The size of the mayor's office, including my opponent, has grown over 70% since the Zimmer administration, and there has been unbridled spending that caused us to go into the city surplus for the first time this last budget cycle. I proudly stood with the council majority to fight against a mayoral tax increase of 4%, and I proudly stood against the same when the mayor attempted to raise parking prices over 260% to plug budget gaps. Now that's independence. If my opponent, who's a employee of the mayor's office, is going to speak that kind of truth to power, I would certainly be surprised.
Thank you.
Well, here's how I'm different. I have years of experience balancing budgets. I've worked for corporations where I balance budgets for multi-million-dollar budgets for corporations, government institutions, and I really believe in balanced budgets. I don't believe in tax increases. What Mike alluded to earlier, we did see municipal tax increases. The mayor was proposing budget increases of 3%. But thanks to the checks and balances of the city council, we only saw 1.7% because we said no to more spending for the mayor's office. And I also believe when it comes to taxes, we do need to get more out of our shared services, especially through Hudson County. Hoboken has seen Hudson County taxes go up 88% since the past decade. So we need to get more out of Hudson County. We need to do things like partner with the Hudson County School or community college and try to have people come in, do educational workshops, and senior citizen facilities. That's one way we could do it, beyond just more funding for parks and stop signs. And I would like to see actually a dog run in the 5th Ward. We only have one dog run in the 5th Ward, which is near the Viaduct on 13th and Madison. We have a ton of residents who bring their dogs to Columbus Park, and I think that's an ideal spot to put a dog run there, and that's something I would aim for if I was on the city council. Thank you.
Sorry, it's hard to see up there. I find it interesting that my opponent thinks that being a clerk is expensive and that I have anything to do with the exploding budget. But anyhow, you know, what I do want to say is that with any city budget, you know, having transparency is most important. You know, we really have to be careful when we look at a budget to make sure that the safety of the residents is first. I know that the budget was held hostage this past year, and the city residents suffered in that. So let's just try to put the politics aside and do the right thing by the residents. Let's hold the line on the taxes. Let's be fiscally responsible, and also let's not play the political games.
So I think that Hoboken's done a pretty good job over the last 10 years. Our taxes have been relatively stable. Our former councilman Cunningham did a good job holding the line on taxes and was a good fiscal steward for the 5th Ward. And I think he set a model for me and the other candidates who are running to take his position. I think Hoboken's been treated very unfairly by Hudson County. When I ran for freeholder 5 years ago, it was my idea that we should have a performance auditor take a look at Hudson County to understand why is it that Bergen County can have 0% tax increases, but Hoboken's getting double-digit tax increases such that we have our taxes almost doubled in the last 10 years from Hudson County, such that we pay the single biggest piece of our tax bill to Hudson County and see the least in return for it. Why can't we get better shared services? Why can't we get better recycling, trash collection, road paving? We do get certain roads paved, but there are things that our county could and should be doing for us given the amount that we put in. We have seniors who would enjoy rides to stores. Other cities in Hudson County get that. There are cruises for seniors. There's all kinds of opportunities that are being doled out by Hudson County to other communities. Why aren't we getting those kinds of things? So I'd like to see Hoboken continue to hold the line on taxes. I think we need to be transparent. I think we need to make sure that we follow through on our budget hearings and do as we say in our budget hearings and not do back of the envelope runs down to the DCA to try and see if you can get something through at the last second, which doesn't really serve anybody, which happened last year. Thank you.
So it's not different that you manage budgets. I also manage budgets. I work in New York City real estate. I have a portfolio of 2,500 units across the country that I manage, and I manage multi-million-dollar budgets for every single property that I manage across the country. It's a hard thing to do. I've heard a lot of things up here, and I'd like to echo some of the sentiments that I've heard. Peter Cunningham did set the bar very high for financial stewardship in the 5th Ward and in Hoboken. You know, our bond rating was basically near junk status, and now it's elevated up to AA. I think we need to be fiscally responsible with how we manage that going forward. And I think we need to be transparent with how this goes apart. What we need to do is think of this as city council member, it's thinking about it as the citizen's checkbook. This is your money, this is my money, and we need to be responsible with the money that we have and how we're using it. Making sure that we're making smart decisions and that we're towing the line on being fiscally conservative and maintaining our status in Hoboken. Thank you.
I think that in terms of taxes, we do have to hold the line. I do believe that there are ways to generate resources and funding within the city without increasing our taxes. For example, we can use our assets so that they can generate the funds. We have, in terms of venue, we have one of the best venues at Pier 8. There was a concert a few years back, but no more concerts happened there afterwards. And I believe that's something that can generate funds for the city, and besides bringing in entertainment and bringing in business to the local businesses as well. But I would like to take it back to affordability and how do we manage that here in Hoboken. I believe that, with rising rents, and it's the same for young professionals and people who have been living for a long time. I think there needs to be more transparency in terms of the rent, so that people know, the tenants know how much is the fair price that they pay for the rent. There has to be more transparency from the city, and our budget has to reflect the importance of affordability, of the fact that we do appreciate having mixed income families living in Hoboken. I would like to also introduce the idea of community land trust and being able to push that as well, which is basically is a project that does nonprofit residences so that it keeps it permanently affordable in time and it could be having ground level commercial space for community partners like our school districts as well. And if we can get money for parks, we can get money for mixed income apartments as well.
Thank you.
As you've heard and will hear throughout the night, all my answers will be clear, concise. I'm never afraid to take a position. What makes me different? What makes me different is I don't want to hold the line on taxes. I want to lower our taxes. I'm not about holding the line. How do we do that? We increase and we diversify our tax base, which I've advocated for years. We keep more money, more tax money in the city of Hoboken rather than sending it to the county. We increase our services from the county for the tax dollars that go to the county. I was the only person who voted no for the tax increase that you all received this year. We need to be consistent. We need to start to change the way we look at our budget. We start at a zero base. We don't start with $10 million in the hole. Why are we $10 million in the hole? Because we bonded and bonded and bonded for hundreds of millions of dollars. That starts us behind the 8 ball. We need to stop it. We need to stop it now. We need to change the way we look at our budget, and we need to do that for the betterment of this city. No more middle of the road, hold the line. Lower taxes in the city of Hoboken. Thank you.
No, excuse me, no applause. No applause.
That's all right, you could applaud.
Yes, try to hold your applause. I know it's difficult. It's tough to contain yourself. But with that said, any rebuttals? Okay.
Thank you, John. One of the most important roles of the City Council under the Faulkner Act is the approval of municipal budget, and I'm glad that my opponent had acknowledged that this year's budget had exploded, quote unquote. Yet she still incorrectly lists that the City Council had held it hostage. I think it's really important to have a conscious legislative body, a group of people that are looking deep into a budget, making sure expenditures are going to the right place, and making sure there is a check and balance with the administration. Now, I understand why it's easy to look the other way when the mayor, Migdalia's boss, is asking her to vote on a budget. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. No,
I'm sorry.
Audience responses. Excuse me.
All right, please.
Responses allowed. You can't have yelling and hooting. To pause the time, please. This is a long-standing tradition. We can applaud at the end. Please no screaming contest or booing contest during the proceedings. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bob.
Please let everyone have the floor when it's their time for the floor. Thank you.
The fact of the matter is, Migdalia is the municipal aide to the mayor, and she is questionable at very best on her ability to hold a true check to the administration. Whether or not she should hold her job after she should presumably get elected or not get elected, she will always be indebted to the mayor, who is her boss. And that's not booable. That's the truth of the matter. And sometimes the truth is not easy to digest.
Time. Any other rebuttals? I saw Mr. Batista first.
Yes, my opponent said that he wants to reduce taxes, making so that people don't pay as much taxes right now. He's been in office for 15 years. I don't think we can wait any longer for a new approach, something that he's going to do differently. I think that we do need to start thinking of new sources of revenue and also new strategies and new ideas. Thanks.
Migdalia, please go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. But it's Mrs. Milano, actually, and I'd prefer if you refer to me that way. Thank you very much.
All right.
I just want to say, I mean, the audience said it all. Really, it's just another form of grandstanding that we are already accustomed to seeing with this, with my opponent. And ultimately, at the end of the day, anybody who knows me knows that I am no political aide to the mayor. In fact, if that were the case, I'd be making a whole lot more money than I am now. I'm a clerk. I make $43,000 a year. No secret, public information. Look it up.
All right. And Councilman?
Thank you, John. Again, it's stark to not understand how city government works. When you're a council member, you get one vote. You advocate for your position, you try to get your colleagues to see that position and vote the way you're trying to influence. You cannot do it alone. And it really is very stark to think that someone is going to be elected to the city council and miraculously change either the administration's position or their colleagues' position over time, if in fact they're not willing to. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, very good. Bob?
Okay. All right, we're having fun now, everybody, aren't we here? All right, here we go. This will be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do a new sort. Boom. Mr. Russo will be first. With this question, we are fortunate enough to have a wonderful host at Stevens Institute at this time, and we have a question from Samantha Mala, who is a Stevens student and student government senator, head of Government and Community Relations Committee, who asks, with over 3,000 undergraduate students, distinguished faculty, and staff members that keep Stevens an innovative university? How do you plan on keeping a mutually beneficial relationship between the city of Hoboken and such a prominent part of it? Mr. Russo.
Thank you. Through the years, I think I've been able to do that effectively. I think Stevens needs to be a partner with the city of Hoboken. When you think about Stevens, you should be thinking about Hoboken and vice versa. Stevens is such a prestigious university. We need to maintain that relationship. We do that every day when we advocate for our constituency. Most people would think Stevens is not in the 3rd Ward. However, we have hundreds of students who live in the 3rd Ward. I've been knocking on their doors. I've been talking to them specifically, and they've been asking the same question. How do you, as my councilman, help Stevens to continue to thrive in the city of Hoboken? And I do that the same way I would do it for every other resident in the city of Hoboken. We continue to be a partner. We make sure that we work diligently to do that, and each and every one of those issues that come up, we address head on. We don't run away from it, we talk about it, and we solve the issue. Thank you.
So, one of my last votes on the zoning board was to approve the Gateway Center, a mixed-use facility on Stevens that would have office space, academic space, and lifestyle space. That vote took over 100 hours of the zoning board, and I was really proud to see that center go up here, not too far from where we stand tonight. That's the kind of leadership that this city needs on the city council. Somebody that's always going to work with Stevens and other stakeholders to make sure that growth is responsible. Talk about growth. What I did as the chairman of the Development Committee is I saw forth a plan to finally house a majority of Stevens students right here on campus, reducing the need for shuttle buses across the city and giving this campus a true student experience. And finally, as chair of the zoning committee, I helmed a campus master plan, charting the growth of this university, not just over the next 2 to 5 years, but over the next 20, because the only way we can be planning for the future of Hoboken is if we plan for the future of Stevens. This is an internationally recognized institution, and we need to support it every chance we get, because the growth of Stevens is the growth of Hoboken. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud to say that Stevens is in Hoboken. I always tell people about it. I think that it's an amazing institution that has some of the brightest minds. I mean, top 20 in engineering. If you want to correct me, please do. But I think that as an activist, it's the good part of being an activist is that you don't have to wait in order to be in an elected position in order to push for change and for supporting the local initiatives. Something I've been doing is bringing different entrepreneurs together, both within Hoboken as well as in New York City. And my focus very much is on how do we differentiate ourselves besides the engineering component, which is great as a competitive advantage here in Hoboken, is to also bring emerging markets. So, for example, the Latino market here in the U.S. is a growing market. How do we best approach it? And how do we incorporate technology and engineering and financial technology in order to expand that and improve both the communities that we serve as well as the professionals, the young professionals that we have here. So I'm looking forward to continuing that work and also make that connection with Stevens as well. Thank you.
So I've spent 8 years as commissioner on the zoning board and heard a number of applications from Stevens over the years, including the academic center with Councilman DeFusco, the 100 hours of those hearings. And what was interesting to me about those hearings is that there was a lot of community opposition, which is, I mean, this is Hoboken. And if you want to build something that's bigger than a bread box, you're going to have a neighbor who's going to show up at the hearing and say why they're concerned about it. And they're right. They're almost always right. You know, it's going to cast a shadow. It's going to create a flood. It's going to make noise. Construction's going to be miserable. Like, I'm going to have a horrible experience. And what Stevens did at that hearing, which was interesting, unlike some of the other folks who've come to be corporate citizens in our city, is that they listened to their neighbors, they accommodated their neighbors, they changed the design of the plan, they changed the height of the plan, they changed the orientation of the plan, and they worked with the neighborhood because they're here for the long term. And that is what a good neighbor does. So Stevens has been, and I've seen it firsthand, they've been a great neighbor to us, and I think think they've been a better neighbor than they have been in the 33 years that I've lived in Hoboken. I think they've made a conscious effort under Dr. Favarden's leadership to really integrate itself with the city in a very beneficial way. During Hurricane Sandy, there were more Stevens volunteers that Ken Nilsson dispatched to City Hall to go on the backs of the trucks with my daughter Madeline's here tonight. She was up with the National Guard going to Fox Hill delivering pharmacies with Stevens students alongside her when we were in our darkest hour. Stevens has been there alongside of us, and they're a wonderful partner, and I look forward to working with them in the future.
Listen, folks, I mean, there's really, it's been a historical partnership between the city of Hoboken and Stevens. We all know that, I guess I think Stevens has been, I've seen it grow throughout my childhood. The new development that's going on their campus is really going to be able to house their students and keep them on campus, and really just, it's blossoming, and it's amazing to see the years of that progression. I would like to say, my one concern is, I feel that we need to take a look at, the Stevens, the parking. I'm surprised that my opponent hasn't mentioned this, considering that he's knocked on Marine View doors. The residents there, have a plight with parking. It's a real issue. And, the allocation of all the parking spaces for staging and for other projects that are happening on campus have been removed from the residents. And, it's something that we should really take a look at, and I would absolutely be advocating for on behalf of the residents.
So, I mean, look around. This is a fantastic resource that Stevens has provided us with for tonight. And this is an incredible opportunity we have, and something that can be born out of a partnership with them. There's scholarships available to high school students at Hoboken High to come to Stevens. And so we do have a good partnership. The concern I have is that we need to make sure that we're keeping open dialogue with Stevens. There is this parking situation going on because of construction that Stevens is doing and the loss of parking spaces down on Frank Sinatra. And rather than pick up the phone and try to work out a solution, the city of Hoboken filed a $4.8 million lawsuit against Stevens Institute to try to get parking permit fees from them. It doesn't matter how many millions of dollars that you get from Stevens for those parking permits. That's not going to build you more parking. We need to be working with Stevens for them to be providing alternate parking solutions for us while they're conducting their construction. Is there a lot on the campus that we could be using? Are there other means of coordinating and working with them as a good partner, in good faith, to try to work out a beneficial solution for the city and for the university? I mean, this is an incredible place. This is an incredible resource, and we need to keep fostering this relationship and open dialogue with Stevens. Thank you.
Yeah, so some of my fellow candidates did allude to it a little bit earlier. Here's what the city shouldn't be doing, and it's basically passing new temporary no parking ordinances through the city council to fine them thousands of dollars. And this was as a result to really fit budget gap holes, and this is what we're seeing. So what are they doing right now? They're suing the city of Hoboken, and I'm not sure how engaged people in the community are, but you should really look into this matter, and it's very predatory. That's not my style or practice of how I would serve on the city council. Stevens has done so much for us. They do send a lot of their students into a lot of civic engagement meetings. They send their students to green committee meetings. They send their students to support affordable housing initiatives. And I really do think we need to do better as a city to work with them, collaborate, engage, and really find synergies. But the one thing we should never do is pass predatory, temporary no parking ordinances to screw them over hundreds and thousands of dollars.
All right. Before I trip on the cloth, taking rebuttals now on the Stevens question. Anyone who would like to speak more on this? Seeing none, we will move to the spreadsheet. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm getting pretty good at this. Boom. Mr. DeFusco will be first, and here's John.
Okay, so another one that I think a lot of people were expecting tonight is we got another stack of questions about civility, partisanship, working together, and I guess in a nutshell, let me put it to everybody like this. So we've obviously seen a lot of council meetings get out of hand. We've obviously seen a lot of infighting between the council and the administration on a variety of issues. So how can we tone down the partisanship, and how will you work not only with your council colleagues, but with the current administration if you're elected on November 5th?
Yeah, John, it's a great question. I've worked very productively with two administrations, and hearing the rhetoric out of this administration as well as Mrs. Milano is frustrating. I've dedicated a firm percentage of the last 4 years to really advancing policy. Sometimes policy isn't easy to get to. It requires compromise, it requires camaraderie, and it requires, making hard decisions. I've worked with the administration to protect our waterfront by reallocating the Monarch development right to my ward. Any uncivil council person would have not done this at all. But from a camaraderie with this administration, we've been able to secure not only a new public works garage, but also a performing arts center right here in the First Ward. I worked with this administration in a way I couldn't work with Mayor Zimmer in expanding our small business district to help small businesses on First 14th on the west side of town, as well as new uses along Washington. But also, I've stood up to this administration. I've fought against a 4% tax increase that was going to be pushed forward to plug budget gaps. I stood up against a 260% rise in our parking fees and violations because it was clear as day that they were using those fees to plug budget gaps. And at the end of the day, this is what the day-to-day of a council person is. It's hard, it's grueling work, but it requires solutions. And in regards to solutions, we need to continue to find them by working together. So in the next 4 years, I look forward to continuing my relationship with this administration. Thank you so much.
I think we start by ushering in a new generation of leadership. I'm actually one of the youngest candidates running for city council. I'm 27 years old. I think my generation, it's been incredibly important to always keep an open mind. And I think that's what we need to see more of on the city council, not individuals who are set in their ways and always think a certain way and think they have to follow and abide by that way. That's certainly not how I wouldn't act on the council. I would always keep an open mind. I would always want to engage and have dialogue with residents. I think technology is a critical tool that we need to leverage more of and start finding ways on how can we better engage with our constituents. How can we engage with residents in our ward? And I think it's also important when you talk about a lot of the infighting, it's important that you have an independent voice. So what makes me different is I haven't been asked by anyone to run for city council. I'm running because I'm running on a public cause, which is really to improve public transit, which I hope we could talk about tonight. If not, you could check it out on my website, nicolaforhoboken.com. But I think that's how we get the ball rolling, and that's how we get a lot of the political infighting out of City Hall. Thank you.
So the state of civility in American political life is horrible, right? I mean, a lot of people, I had a long discussion with my wife about whether I should run for this office, and it took her a long time before she said yes. And she loves me, and I don't blame her for thinking hard and long about this, because it's not easy. And when you put yourself into the public space in Hoboken, and I lived here 33 years, there's a lot of good being involved in the community and working on boards and working on services and working with your neighbors, but there's a lot of bad that happens as well. And when I worked on the zoning board for 8 years as commissioner, maybe it was because there were no cameras in the room, but we worked together. We had hearings, neighbors objected, we had presentations by lawyers, architects, planners, and at the end of the day, we would vote up, we would vote down, and we would go to the next application. And that's how we did our business every night. That's the way, and Councilman DeFuca is shaking his head, that's how we worked together. There was no personal infighting, there was no personal agendas. Either we agreed we had a majority to approve a plan, or we didn't, and it was defeated, and we moved on to the next one. City council doesn't work like that. You look at a council meeting, you see cross-examination of administration officials trying to embarrass, trying to humiliate, trying to find out whether the person's a liar, a cheater, or a fraud, spending all of your time and energy rather than working for the people playing politics. I commit to bring civility to City Council because it's important. Thank you.
I always like to hold the mic in my hand for some reason. I find this to be an interesting topic, and I find even more interesting is the response of my opponent, who has single-handedly character attacked me the entire evening. And if that's how you work together with people, I'm afraid to see otherwise. But I just want to say that obviously, listen, I'm a first-time candidate. I'm not a politician. I work in City Hall in constituent services. On a daily basis, I solve problems. Residents that come in, that have issues, that have concerns, we find them viable solutions. We find them services that they need. We work on a daily basis with these residents. And it's problem solving. It's negotiating, it's finding solutions. That's what I'm good at. And, it's communication and listening. The residents need to be heard. You can't just keep talking over them. You have to sit down and listen to their needs and not yours. And, I guess I appreciate that my opponent has brought so much development into the first ward. I'm just wondering, what piece of the puzzle did he get out of that?
Actions speak volumes. Let's talk about working together. Protected seniors this year, 514 Madison Street. Made sure their building was upgraded as promised. Dealing with a bed bug infestation. Advocated for a senior van that's coming on. Built 2 new parks in the 3rd Ward, quadrupling the open space in that ward, both at Madison Street and 7th and Jackson. We created affordable housing. We've paved most of the ward. We've mitigated flooding. We've increased the safety for pedestrians. We've provided alternate means of transportation in our HOP, shared scooters, bikes, senior shuttle, car sharing, the list goes on and all. I did that with the administration and with my colleagues on the council, and we worked together to achieve that. And folks, we did all that just this past year.
All right, no applause.
This is not my first time running for office, and basically, even after running for office last time, I can't say that I get along with everybody on this table, especially because I don't go after people on a personal level. I don't go talking to their friends or neighbors and bashing them. I don't do that. And that's something that has opened up the door to collaborate with the administration, with across the board with different activists. And I do think that there needs to be eyes on the city council in those sessions. I actually advocated for the council sessions to be live streamed on Facebook instead of Ustream because it would get more views, and it actually gets about an average about 2,000 views every 2 weeks. And that actually helps because people now see is like who is being very aggressive and who is not. Who is actually being collaborative and who is not. I do want to say that when I bring something to the table and I say something, it's based on policy. It's not based on personal vendettas, not based on personal attacks. I do want to say that I'm looking forward to working with everybody on this table to make sure that we have a city that works for all ages and abilities. Thank you.
So I've been saying this on the campaign trail a lot as I go around and knock on doors and meet more people, and they want to know what I think of Nick, they want to know what I think of Phil, and I have nothing bad to say about either one of them. It's too small of a town. Since I announced I was running, I've run into Phil at the farmer's market, on the campaign trail, I've run into Nick. We see each other too often. There's no reason to come out and attack people, and you're right, you watch these council meetings, it's exhausting. The bickering, the back and forth, we're not talking about doing what's best for Hoboken when those things are going on. We're trying to get back and forth at one another. As far as working together and the civility of it all, I'm doing it already on the campaign trail. Nick and I were introduced at a block party, and he had overheard me talking about one of the things I do once a month, which is cook at the homeless shelter. And he said, wow, that would be great. I'd love to do that with you. And I know Phil is very heavily involved. His wife is on the board at the shelter, and we've all committed to cooking together, the three of us, after the election season is over. It's an incredible thing to do there. We're all working together for a really good cause. And that's what happens when people can come together, when you can listen to what other people have to say. There's no reason to have all the back and forth and the infighting. Thank you.
All right, great. So, any rebuttals?
Actually, I'd like to rebuttal. Yeah. Thank you so much. Part of being on the city council is factually debating, right? Like we're doing tonight. What frustrates me about campaigning, as Mrs. Milano is doing, is the creation of false narratives, fear-mongering, like she just did on the stand here. The only development that has come into the first ward is development that was brought by Mayor Ravi Bala and put forth before my committee. And my committee has done a yeoman's job at making sure that we kept $4 million of investments in the first ward for the Hilton Hotel project instead of sending them uptown, where a judge said it would be wrought with peril and it would create a perception of bribery and deceit. Now, that is what being an independent is. So you can say whatever you want, Mrs. Milano, but at the end of the day, working hard with your boss and the administration is what I've done and what I'll continue to do if given the chance by our neighbors. Thank you so much.
All right, Eddie, what else? Okay. Bob?
All right. So, guys, just, we have a hard out at 9 o'clock, so we may not have time for rebuttals on this last one, but here we go anyway. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Who sort? I have this down to a science. Mr. DeFusco again, but the other names all changed. And so this question, there's a number of questions about various kinds of levels of stridency about the subject of the pay-to-play ordinance in Hoboken. I'll just say that rather than get into all the specifics of different points of view on this. I think we all, the candidates all know what this is. We begin with Mr. DeFusco.
Thank you so much. It's actually a good parallel to the false narrative rebuttal that I just had. Sometimes it's easy to scare people in elections, but it's a lot harder to debate the facts. My opponent is spreading a false rumor that somehow I am in violation of pay-to-play, when in reality I am in full compliance with all relevant state and federal laws. I have never received one correspondence from the administration, specifically the city clerk, saying that I'm in violation. Yet she continues to scare people that there's some sort of outside influence that's impacting me. Now, what's scary here is the use of official government resources to attack a political opponent. We might as well be Trump, using the Ukraine to attack Biden at this point, because that's what we have in this administration. And I know that I am an outspoken independent on the city council, and I know that scares Mayor Bala, but he has not shown any ability to work through this political divide to make sure that we have the civility we were just talking about. Now, if he had actually been completely transparent, and if my opponent is transparent tonight, they'll acknowledge that there's an outside super PAC funded by a city vendor, the health insurance vendor, as well as a pro-development super PAC. You won't hear about that until, hate mailings start, a couple days before the election. That's the fear-mongering that this administration often relies on, and that's what's wrong with politics today, not just nationally, but right here in our backyard in Hoboken. Thank you very much.
Wow, I have to follow Mike on that question. I'll tell you, I'm in support of transparency when we see these ELEC forms coming out. I'm in favor of complying with the laws, and it's likely to be because I'm not getting any money from a super PAC. I'm not getting any money from a union or any special interest group out there. It's grassroots. It's donations from my neighbors. It's a nice donation from my mom and dad as well. But I'm an independent voice here. I don't have any other interest influencing me at all other than the woman I sleep with every night, my wife, and
Smart man, Tim.
and I have an interest in doing what's right for Hoboken, and that's really where I'm at. Thank you. My wife couldn't be here tonight, so if everyone could just keep that quiet.
It'd be helpful if the screen was in front of you. Well, just to start off by saying my campaign has been fully compliant with all federal, state, and local laws, and it plans to be. So we will remain compliant with pay-to-play. I work currently in regulatory governance, so I make sure that my firm is super compliant when it comes to regulatory requests that we get from our external regulators, make sure that we're compliant with our auditors, whether that's internal or external. I know what can happen when you are out of compliance, and certainly that's not something I would want to see happen if I've served on the city council and I saw things that shouldn't have been done. I also worked as a financial advisor in my career, so I know and understand how important it is to always act in the fiduciary capacity of someone else, and as I alluded to earlier, that's the type of mentality and thinking I would bring on the city council. I'm acting on behalf of the residents who vote me in office, and I certainly would make sure we would make smart, sound financial decisions if I have the pleasure to serve all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I am in favor of transparency. I started my campaign earlier this year, and from the beginning, from the get-go, I said nothing against developers, but in terms of transparency, if I'm going to be deciding on, in terms of development in Hoboken, I don't think it would be good to receive funding for my campaign from developers, so I said I wouldn't accept any developer money, and I've kept them mostly friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, who have been able to help me. Now, I do have a 1-year-old at home, and so it has been very tough for me to be able to file the last filing for the campaign. However, that will come up really fast. I've done most of the donations online, and I'm happy to see that I'm not the only one in terms of being an independent and really raising funds from friends and family. Thanks.
So it was as recent as 2009 that we had our mayor taken away by the FBI because he was heard on a wire offering to fast-track development for cash in the Malibu diner. Okay, so pay-to-play is no joke in Hoboken. It's really serious business. And I'm proud of the fact that I have, and so have the folks that are running on my slate, have all agreed to abide by the local, state, and federal pay-to-play law. And I don't know why the city council found it so hard to approve a resolution saying that it would be okay to do the same. It's the right message to send. Just this week, we have a local politician who's going to be sentenced for buying votes in the 5th Ward, where I live, where disadvantaged people sold their votes for $50 a vote. So this is a very serious situation, and it's beyond me why the city council could not find its way clear to agree to abide by local pay-to-play ordinance. Even if it was allegedly unenforceable, it sends the right message to our community that we care about this. I, too, am not taking $1 from any local developer, and I've turned down any offers of that money, and I've spoken to some, and I've told them I don't want a penny of it. I want to shout out to Max and Ellie Cohen, my 2 biggest donors, Mom and Dad. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you.
Phil Cohen does bring up a good point with the recent Frank Brea situation, which I'm assuming that most people are aware of, the vote-by-mail fraud. That's exactly why I have decided, and so has my slate mates, we've all decided to have volunteers. Why pay for people to work the elections when we can have volunteers? So we want to keep it clean. Listen, I follow the rules. I don't know about my opponent, because, and you don't have to take my word for it, but, I mean, he's had some issues just 2 years ago with Tiffany Fisher bringing some sort of complaint up at the legal level, but that's the past. What I'm focused on here is myself, because I'm the one on the podium, not the mayor running. So I follow the rules. My elect report will show you that all of my donations come from local residents like yourselves, with the exception of 3, my wife's family, that are upstate. But yeah, I mean, listen, we lived in a world, I grew up in a world here in Hoboken that was just, surrounded by corruption. I don't want to be part of that, and I refuse to be part of that, which is why we're keeping our campaign clean. My campaign, you can see on my website. My funds come directly from folks like you, unlike my opponent.
So just taking it back to civility for 1 second. Ron and I have been absolutely civil through this whole campaign, and Ron, if it's up to me, I absolutely forgive you. I have 4 at home, I know what it's like. But this answer is really clear and concise for me. I've supported every single anti-pay-to-play initiative in the city of Hoboken, and I will continue to support everyone that comes before the city council. Plain as day.
Okay, are there any rebuttals on who Mr. Krul sleeps with? Because that was in the last. Okay, hearing none. Wow, Bob, we haven't.
Bob, maybe I have a rebuttal.
All right, so we're going to move to closing statements because we're running short of time. And
Bob,
so,
may I?
I'm sorry, but you can include in your closing statement whatever you'd like to say.
I thought we were on rebuttals, no?
No, we have no time for that because of the clock.
Oh, okay.
And so we're going to move to closing statements. I'll do the same method here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we do a new highlight and a new sort. And there it is. So this will be closing statements where we do allow applause as you see fit, beginning with Mr. Batista.
Yes, I would like to start by saying that we haven't talked about the names of the people who have died because of car crashes. William Rivera, 60-year-old on Observer Highway. Agnes Becerra, 89-year-old in Washington and 5th. And I do want to speak also about the fact that I came with my parents when I was 12 years old. And because of everything Hoboken is, that's what we state. I am proud to be from Hoboken, and I'm not going anywhere. We do have an affordability crisis. We have a climate emergency, both flood and heat waves that are hitting our country and our world. And we have people who have died getting hit by a car. Because too many politicians have been afraid to take action and bold action, no more middle of the ground work. By 2030, my daughter Sophia will be 12 years old, and I'm up here because all I want is for her to have the same thing that my parents gave me when I came here to the country 20 years ago, which is a fighting chance. That's all. So please vote Bautista on November 5th. Thanks.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for attending tonight's debate. Thank you very much. I do want to reiterate why I believe you should vote for me as a candidate on November 5th. I will say the principles of my candidacy have been founded on improving your quality of life. I've been an advocate for Hoboken commuters. I've been advocating for things like express uptown pickups on Clinton Street for our uptown residents, routes west of Clinton Street for a growing development area, things like advocating for a 15th Street light rail station, advocating for ease of parking. This is what I've been standing for, and this is what I've really been fighting for. Number 2, I think it's important that we recognize the legacy of our current councilman, Peter Cunningham. His legacy is really promoting and bringing fiscal responsibility, which is what I do, in bringing in that type of experience and balancing budgets in my career. And thirdly, I always said from the start of my campaign, as long as you have a vision and you could execute on that vision, you'll do a great job. I certainly have a vision for Hoboken. I have solutions in place to execute on that vision, and I hope on November 5th you can elect me, Nicola Maganuco, 1C on the ballot. Thank you.
Thanks to the QLC for hosting tonight's debate. I lived in Hoboken 33 years. We raised our 19-year-old daughter, Anna, and our 23-year-old daughter, Madeline, who's here with us tonight here in Hoboken. I've been an active, engaged volunteer. I served 2 years on the Citizens Advisory Board for the Rebuild by Design project working on our flood protections. I've served as the board chair of my kids' school. I've served on the board of the Hoboken Synagogue, the board of the Liberty Humane Animal Shelter, the planning board, and 8 years on the zoning board. Please go to philcohen.org to learn more about my community service and my views on the issues that affect our community. Bottom line, engagement matters. Commitment matters. I've never run for city council. I'm asking you for the opportunity to serve the city that I love as your 5th Ward councilman. I'm asking you for your vote. On November 5th, vote 1E for Phil Cohen for new leadership for the 5th Ward. Thank you.
Again, a big thank you to QLC, Hudson County View, our moderators, and of course Stevens. It was an excellent debate. As the residents of the 3rd Ward know and understand, experience counts in this election. I believe my campaign slogan sums it up nicely. Promises made, promises kept. Vote Dr. Michael Russo, 1C, on November 5th.
When I started this endeavor, I did some research into what it meant or what it took to be a good councilman. And a couple pages down, I found something that really struck with me. It was, you need to have the determination to listen to all sides of the argument, weigh all the options, and do not what's right for you, not what's right for your friend or your neighbor, but for the community as a whole. Now, I'll tell you, that really struck with me because that's a way that I live my life. The citizens have a voice, and it shouldn't take a backseat to anything. All citizens, 5th Ward, Hoboken, will all have an equal standing with me. I'm going to listen to everyone, I'm going to weigh all the options, and I hope you vote 1D on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the organizers of this event. It's been an evening. As an independent on the City Council, I've worked with the administration on over 90% of legislation. I think the mayor says it best. Fortunately, this is a strong form of government, and I've been able to enact the priorities of my administration, and for the most part, of the big ticket the council has agreed. You've heard my opponent try to dispel a belief of collaboration. She's tried to fearmonger, but I am so proud of the work that we've done in the 1st Ward and across the city, from holding back a tax increase to pushing for a European market at the train terminal, getting more garbage cans. The job of a local city council person is to work with everybody, whether you agree or disagree, in the best interest of Hoboken. And that's what I'm so proud to have done. And with the support of my neighbors, I'm looking forward to working with everybody over the next 4 years again. Thank you so much.
You know, I genuinely do want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I was quite nervous about this. It's my first time being on stage, acting in a forum like this, and I think it's been quite an experience. And I do thank Melissa for putting this together, and Bob and John, thank you so much for being great moderators. I would like to say that I think it's quite obvious and quite clear what I am about. I'm not a career politician because it's my first time running. My interest is not that of developers. My interest is not that of who's gonna, give me the most donation. My interest is that of the people and the quality of life of the people here in the city of Hoboken. The voices that I keep talking to that haven't been heard. That's why I'm running for city council, because I want to be that advocate and that voice for the residents of the 1st Ward. My name is Migdalia Pagan Milano. Go to my website and look at my platform. Thank you.
Okay. Just, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? So just to quickly wrap up, thanks guys. There's another event on Thursday for the other wards, the, I guess, even-numbered wards. I try to keep a good attitude and a positive disposition, but after hundreds of questions were submitted, I am disappointed we had not one on the doggedly Hoboken Instagram, but maybe we can help fix that tomorrow. And now John.
All right, so really quickly, just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Melissa, Hoboken Quality of Life. Of course, thank you, Stevens. Thank you, Mark, who, of course, again, helped us on Facebook. And, of course, the candidates. We couldn't do it without the candidates, so I think a round of applause is in order. So, I think everybody here already knows, but I'm going to say it anyway. Election day is November 5th, so don't forget to vote. Thank you for the 100 or so of you who came out. We hope to see you back again on Thursday. We're going to do the council candidates in wards 2, 4, and 6, and we'll see you hopefully then, and we'll also hopefully then see you at the reception afterwards. Have a great night. See you Thursday.
Oh, there is a reception afterwards. Yes, I know, but again, guys, just to clarify, there is a reception immediately after this event at Stevens. Oh, excuse me. There is one on Thursday. There's not one after this event. Don't go tonight. Sorry, it's on Thursday.
That's at the Babbio Center atrium. So hopefully we'll see you here then, and then we'll catch you there afterwards. Have a great night.
No, not yet.
Absolutely not.